Okay, today we are going to edit our photo in Photopea. It is a free online editing program, very similar to Photoshop. And for this project, remember, we want to find a fully colored image, one that either you photographed or found online, or a friend photographed, or family member, whatever the case may be. We need a digital format of the image we will be adjusting, and then we will develop that into a color popped situation, putting emphasis on where the color is located, and then everything else will be black and white, similar to all these examples here. So on the curriculum website, there's a link to photopea.com. You may click on that, or you can just go to photopea.com, P-E-A. Now this is going to be our workspace. If you are familiar with Photoshop, it looks extremely similar to Photoshop, which is nice because Photoshop is very expensive and this program is free and can do everything that we need to do, specifically for this project. So you're going to upload your image, which will be under File, Open. Once again, if you are using your Chromebook, you'll most likely find your image on your Google Drive. For me, though, I have it saved on my desktop, and we will open that. So all you need to do is find the file that includes the project you will be editing to make a color pop. All right, first on the agenda, we are going to make a selection. So that means we are going to only select the area of what you want to make a color pop. You can do this two ways. You can select everything and leave out the color pop, or you can select the color pop only, which I think is going to be the more sufficient way, especially if your object is bright and bold, full of color. Everybody's situation is going to be a little bit different, and I can help you on a case-by-case basis if you have further questions. But I'm going to be selecting the thing that I will eventually have as the only thing that will be in color. Everything else will be black and white. So 4 tools down on the left-hand side, you have your magic wand, but we want to start with the quick selection tool. So anytime there's this little arrow in the bottom right-hand corner, that means that there are multiple tools under that selection or that spot. So these two basically do the same thing. They both make it, all 3 of these, they make a selection. So whenever there's an arrow next to something, they all do something very similar. It's just how they do it. So we're going to switch to the quick selection tool. Okay. And then I'm going to only select my beak. That is going to be my color pop. I already have it done. So I'm going to show you again though, but this is what my final product will end up looking like. So first off, depending on how big the thing is that you're going to color pop, you might want to zoom in. So I'll go ahead and use my zoom tool, which is very bottom, close to the color swatches here. Go back and click on you can zoom in and zoom out. There's a plus minus here, fit screen, pop back to where it was. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit on my beak. I am going to go to my quick selection tool, and then I'm going to click inside the area of what I want to select. Now with the quick selection tool, it selects similar colors, okay, or things that have created an edge. So this is why it selected all these kind of similar oranges and reds here. Okay, then if I click in another location, you've seen that it's added to it. Now you don't have to do this, but I'm going to undo. Control Z is a way to undo, or edit, undo, or step backward. So Control Z for me. So right now the only thing selected is this red orange part, but when I click outside of that, it starts to select other things and joins those together. So now I'll click the bottom, and then it kind of snapped all those together. And I can click this part of the beak, that part of the beak, up here. Okay. Now if you accidentally click and then all those dots go away, you're like, uh-oh, what happened? If you zoom out, you'll notice that this color portion of the beak is very similar to the color portion of the background, and therefore it ended up selecting all of the background except for like these few little bits. So we want to make sure we're not running into that. So you don't have to do this, but just to show you, everything is selected except for those little green spots now. Now if I undo a few times, everything that's selected is the beak here. And that's ideally what we would want. Now if there are smaller little adjustments you want to or need to make on your image, and you're like, oh man, like this is really tight squeeze, I gotta make sure I'm only getting this specific part, that's when you can switch to the magic wand tool. You can click Unite right here where these two full circles are, and then that will add to it. So now notice how now I've got this part of the beak selected, and I can add to it. Now, if we want to get super technical, there is this tolerance area, and that kind of is the adjustment on how much will be selected on what the differential of color is. So if I had one student doing a clownfish in a coral reef setting, and the clownfish color and one of the pieces of coral reef were very similar, so we had to adjust the tolerance, so making sure that only the goldfish was being selected and not the coral as well. So tolerance, you would lower it to like 4, so then that means it's going to select less things and be very specific on the location that you're clicking. I believe 16 is the standard. If you up that to like 100, then it's going to select a lot more. But now, since I click Unite and this one's selected, I can just go through and click. If you still only have this one selected, you have to hold Shift, and then that'll add to it. But if you just click that Unite one, you should be good to go. Now, if you accidentally click, you can do Undo, or you can go to the one next to it and it's Subtract. So then you can subtract things that you don't need anymore. So you can add and subtract. I'm just going to keep undoing until where I was. Go back to Unite, and I'm going to make sure that everything that I want color popped is inside these little lines. If you click the hand tool, you can move your screen around and make sure you have everything that you need. Now I'm going to go ahead and click on the magnifying glass, fit the screen, and now just to show you guys, I'm going to go to my cursor tool and show you that I have selected what I need. Okay, so next we are going to inverse our selection. So right now the beak is selected, but if we do adjustments to the beak, then that's not doing adjustments to the rest of the picture where we want to make the adjustments to make it black and white. So we want everything except the beak selected. So what I'm going to do now is go to Select, Inverse. Now technically you wouldn't have to do this step if you selected everything except your color pop, but I think selecting everything in the background would have took way too long, or a lot more time. So now, once again, you don't have to do this unless you want to kind of like check your work, I guess, but just make sure you undo what you moved so everything snaps back into place. But now I have everything selected except my beak. So now if I make any adjustments, it's going to be everything that's selected, which for me is what I want. Okay, so next on the agenda would be to click Image, Adjustments, and then we're going to go to Hue Saturation. Remember Hue Saturation, we talked about in color theory, hue being your pure colors, saturation meaning the brightness or dullness of a color. So if you did want to do some adjusting of pictures, obviously not for this project, but you can like change things up and have fun with it, edit your photos, do whatever you want, change the lightness and darkness, which we will kind of talk about here shortly. But for this project, we are dealing with saturation to make it black and white. So I am going to take the saturation to -100. I eliminated all of the hues, okay, hue being color. I'll press OK. Now it's a little bit on the toned down grayish side, and I want to enhance my darks and I want to enhance my lights. I kind of have, so this is the picture that I'm at right now. I think this is just a little too on the gray side, so I want to develop my forms a little bit more understandingly and have my full range of white to black and vice versa with all my values in between. Right now I just feel like my toucan is sitting in this middle range, and in order to really enhance form and create that three-dimensionality on a two-dimensional surface, we need to enhance the lights and darks. So super easy. Once again, image, adjustments. This time we're going to play around with brightness and contrast. Move it off to the side by clicking on the top so we can see what we're working with. I can enhance my brightness, maybe just a tad, but I really want to focus on contrast, and that'll help develop, brings out more details, and also will bring out those highlights and shadows. Okay, so if I reset, so if we're watching my screen right now and I go reset, you'll see the difference. Okay, this is very toned down and gray. Let's go ahead and enhance those highlights and shadows while we can. Now there's a lot of different ways to do this. You could do it with curves, which is a lot more specific, and levels and exposure. There's lots of editing ways you can go about this, but this being a basic kind of understanding, and we're more focused on the painting and not our editing skills, we'll just go with that situation that I just told you about. Okay, then finally I'm going to go to select, deselect. So now we're just back on the picture. Nothing is selected anymore. Once again, you don't have to do this, but notice how whenever I move my picture, everything's moving now, not just the beak or not just the background. Pop that back into place. Then when you're going to go to File, and we want to save this. We do not want to save it as a Photoshop file, but you could, but Photoshop files are not compatible with Google Sites. So instead of clicking save or save as, you are going to export as. So once again, File, Export as, and Google Sites is compatible with PNGs and JPEGs. So it doesn't matter which one you click. JPEG is the more universal, so you can click on that. It tells you the size and whatnot. Go ahead and throw your quality up to 100%. These files aren't very big, so shouldn't have any issues with file size. And then you'll click Save. And now you have successfully edited a fully colored picture into black and white, and then also enhanced our darks and lights to really pay attention to that form. All right, if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, please let me know. And that is a full quick run through of how to edit in Photopea. And there are, once again, the written out step-by-step instructions if you need to have some clarification or remember kind of where things were located along the way while I was doing them.